Walden. I just recently watched the movie trailer thing about the movement, making a movie about the shifting, and I've decided I'd like to add to that. I have made a lot of shifts in my life, um, and I would like to add into this, if nothing else, people get some inspiration, inspire themselves. Others outside of me have inspired me to do things different. At one time, I thought they were the cause of it, but they're not. They were the inspiration. And so, again, thank you, Derek. You were my inspiration to do this. Um, I would like, I would love to have my life count, matter. Been through a lot in this lifetime, gained a lot of wisdom, um, made a lot of changes and a lot of shifts. The story begins. I guess the only place to start is where the first major shift, happened in my life. Um, I was in a county jail, maximum security cell, county jail. There was only 16 people in there, and all of them pretty crazy and violent. Um, I had a situation happen in my life. I had been out of prison. I'd done 6 years in a maximum security prison. Um, got out. My dad actually bought my parole, I think. Um, and within 2.5 months, I was gut shot with a 45 in a bar fight with a guy, because that's the only way I knew how to live. And had a death experience on the way to the hospital. Was pronounced dead. Walked away from him several times in surgery as dead. But evidently, I'm meant to be here. So, anyhow, I was out of prison for about 9 months, and they were going to put me back in prison for something I didn't do. No need going into the story. I didn't do it, and they found out, and they let me out, and just laid the law down. You have to really walk a fine line, or you're going back to prison. And I didn't know it, but when all this happened, when they were trying to put me back, there was this woman that was involved. She was in charge of probation and parole for that entire county. I didn't even know that, and but they wanted to put me back in prison because of my reputation and being a crazy badass. So they found out I didn't do what they said I did, and they let me out. And I was out for a couple of years. Um, and then there was an incident that happened in my life, and I just said, hell with it. I went and robbed a liquor store and went around the corner and waited for them to come get me. And that's why I was in the county jail, facing 2 life sentences. One was for the armed robbery I did, and the other was for third-time loser, third-time felony conviction, um, third felony conviction. And so I was basically homicidal, suicidal, and I was hurting people pretty badly, trying to get them to kill me. My secret plan was to go back to prison. Whoever took my place, I was going to challenge them and let them kill me. So it didn't look like an actual suicide. And there's been many attempts at that in my life. Just didn't want to be here. So I was being, with my reputation odd, they wouldn't take me out of the cell without a lot of chains on me and handcuffs and a dust mask. I couldn't spit on anybody. I'd already spit on the judge. And so he took me down to this room, and they put me at a table, chained up, with this mask on me. And the door opens up, and there's this good-looking blonde walks in. I'm thinking, who the hell is that, And she took one look at me, and she turned to the guards, and she said, get that stupid mask off of him and take those handcuffs and chains off of him. I'm not going to talk to somebody like this, chained up like that. I'm thinking, who in the hell is this, So they did, and they said, Miss Haley, do you know? forget the name. I said, do you know who this guy is? Yeah, I know who he is. Well, she'd been following me. She's in charge of probation and parole for that county. And she had me followed. She followed me personally, off and on for 2 years, wanting to bust me and put me back in prison. And so I've been working my butt off. You know, I was making good money, had nice cars, had a wife, had a baby, all this stuff. And then a tragedy happened, and I said, to hell with it. So she walks in, and I'm wondering who she is, and they come take the, handcuffs and stuff off of me, and she walks up to the table, and my nickname is Bubba. She says, Bubba, do you know who I am? And I said, lady, I don't give a rat's ass who you are. And that was my attitude. And she said, wait a minute, big boy. She said, I didn't come in here treating you like this. I came in here treating you with the respect that I have for you. And I'm thinking, where is this coming from? She said, I've been watching you for 2 years, looking for an excuse to bust your bad ass and put you back in prison. And you've never given me any excuse to do that. You've just worked your ass off to do the right thing. And then I looked at her, and she's looking at me, and these tears are forming in her eyes. I'm thinking, what in the hell is going on? And she said, Bubba, why did you throw your life away? And she started crying. And I took a breath, and I had a cockamamie story I was going to give her, and I lost it. I hadn't cried since I was 6 or 7 years old, and I made up for it. And then I told her what my plan was. I wanted out of here. And so she made a decision. She stood up. She looked me in the eyes. We went through some of our emotional stuff. And she said, Bubba, I don't think you're a criminal, and I don't believe that you need to spend the rest of your life in prison. And I'm going to do everything in my power to help you. You need some help. I don't believe you need to spend the rest of your life in prison. And this was the first time, and I was 29 years old, that anybody ever wanted anything to do with me. The neighborhood kids weren't allowed to play with me. I mean, my mother didn't want me. My dad didn't want me. I had one sister that, would put food in the mailbox when I'd run away from home. But it was the first time in 29 years anybody actually really wanted anything to do with me and wanted to help me out. And that was a major shift in my life. I walked out of that room. I was in that room an hour with her, possibly. And when I walked out of that room, I was a completely different man, different human being, different attitude. None of all that was supposed to happen happened. And there's a lot of story in that. She did. She risked her job. She risked her career. She did everything she could do to help me out. And she did. So, long story short, I agreed to a plea bargain for the armed robbery. I went back to prison with an 8-year sentence run concurrent with the 15 I was doing, and I'd finish up my time. And I said, I did the crime, I do the time. So I went back with a wonderful attitude. Anyhow, that was the first major shift in my life. And I did 4.5 more years. I got out. And then I started getting involved in different modalities of change and stuff. The first was the rebirthing movement back in the early 80s. And I was making so much change in my life that I would go to restaurants and people knew me for most of my life and said, is that you, Bubba? yeah, it's me. But I was making a lot of change, a lot of shifting. And then this has all turned into what, for me, and I can only speak for myself, the number one shift for inside of me is to participate and practice being in this world in a way that's different than the whole victimizer consciousness. I found out that I'm actually the one making up my whole emotional experience. Feeling emotional, however we want to put it. I realized that, or was given the awareness that how powerful my thinking is, and that every movie I run in my mind creates an equal experience. that I was actually the one making this whole thing up. Well, the shifts happened in sequences, and then some of them weren't all that easy. I mean, because I was, big bad Bubba, and I didn't take any shit off anybody. And if they threatened me at all, I'd take them out, and you just cannot live in a society that way. Anyhow, um, long story short, I began to realize that there was a power different than me that was assisting me. And it was placing in front of me different modalities that I could help myself with. I was still in the victim consciousness, so I was always looking for somebody to save me, to heal me, to rescue me, because I didn't know that I was the cause of my own pain. And then I began to realize that the way I made myself up from the beginning, from conception on, was what I was living in. And it was, perfect. Everything I made up is operating perfectly, producing the perfect amount of pain based on certain situations that I interpreted that you are the one making me feel. And I began to realize that it wasn't so. And this shift, I think, is probably one of the most meaningful for me, is that when I began to linguistically, mentally participate in life differently, as the creator of my life instead of the victim of it, I began to use different language. I would say to people, "How are you doing yourself?" They'd say, "What? I'm the one doing me. It's however I do you with me that creates my experience with you." And I had several very traumatic experiences that really drove this home for me. And I won't bore you with the story, but they're fun. Anyhow, I began to participate in life differently as the creator of my life. And the way that I began to do this is that no matter what situation is going on in my life, take responsibility for being the creator of the aspect or part of me that's making this happen. Oh, perfect. Life is very different now. I have more friends than I can remember to invite to my birthday parties. And I've never had friends before. I mean, all I had was people that were afraid of me. So this is such a blessing in my life. I just got off the phone with one of my best friends. It's traveling around the country in his fifth wheel. But it's just like, having a conversation with one of my best friends, and we get off the phone, before we get off the phone, say, "I love you," and "I love you too, my friend." And that never was before in my life. There was no love in my life. Just defense, So, two big major shifts. One was that hour in that room with Joyce, and me deciding that maybe I was worth saving. So I don't want to blame the shift on her. I want her to have to be the one to put me in touch with things inside of me where I made the shift, just like Derek did on this video about the shift. His last statement was, "Make your life matter." And that's what I'd like to do, is make my life matter. And I'd like to pass on as much assistance for people to be able to do themselves differently in their life. The number one thing is, for me, the big shift in consciousness is that, wait a minute, it's not being done to me. They're just treating me exactly the way some aspect of me feels about itself, and it's operating perfectly. And central casting's operating perfectly. I recently went through, they've been inside my abdomen 4 times from the gunshot wound. They'd been inside my chest 3 times for, I had triple bypass surgery done, and then I had that staph MRSA infection and all these kind of things, and I decided to take responsibility for this just not being a normal thing where you go in and get triple bypass. They went inside my chest 3 times, And so My friend asked him to come over. He helps me. He holds a space for me, and I have held one for him for 22 years. And went in and found out that I had a belief about myself that was operating perfectly. And the belief was that I'd caused so much pain and suffering in my family that I had to suffer the rest of my life. And God, have I ever suffered in this life. So things were operating so perfectly. Anyhow, that's my yada 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 about making a shift in consciousness. I'm no longer participating in the blame game that you make me feel or anything out there is the cause of my experience. It's how I process the experiences going on around me that creates my experience. And I love it. I'm completely in charge of my life today. I no longer have to suffer unless I choose to. So that's about the best I can do. There's a lot of stories in there, of the way things happen and why they happen, and it eat up a whole lot of time. So I really support this movement about a shift in consciousness. If I can make it, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I was a complete write-off. Nobody wanted me around. I spent about 18 months in a 6x9 cell. They wouldn't even open the door. I had to bathe in the toilet because I was so violent. And I don't think you see that in me now. I am that I am. I am what I am. And so, blessings. I hope that this movie comes out quickly and people can begin to wake up and shift the way they're doing themselves. Instead of participating in the whole blame game that you make me feel, take responsibility for being the creator of the experience or the parts that are in charge of the experience, and then change your mind. It's worked for me. I'm now 69 years old. I never dreamed that I'd live to be 21. And so I pass this on to you. And I mean, if they will provide my information, I'd be glad to help anybody that needs help. I don't charge anything for my facilitation. My sessions are all by donation. So that's about it. I wish everyone well. My heartfelt desire is that people begin to wake up and realize that they're the ones making it up. That I'm the one. How can we talk about me? I'm the one making it up. And I pass this on to you now. So thank you. And bless all your hearts that are involved. Thank you.